Hey guys, this is Mitch with Fine.CGI, and today we're going to talk about how to use Rust with Godot. I know I did this tutorial, I want to say almost 2 years ago, but so much has changed. So I thought I would update it for Godot 4.1 and see how the integration works now. So we're going to go through the process of installing Rust. Then we're going to go through and actually build a cargo library. So that way we can actually build our library. We're going to talk about how to compile and do things like that. Then we're going to talk about how to handle different node types. So in this case, we're going to do a node 2D, but of course you can use any node that you want. Then we're going to talk about how to hook it all up and get it running. And we're going to talk about how to set up an API entry point so you can actually call it from GD script and call signals from your Rust implementation. And finally, we're going to talk about how to do breakpoints and debugging within Rust. So that's what I have in store for you guys today. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to actually install Rust, and Rust up is basically what I've been told is one of the standards of Rust. So we're going to go ahead and install this one. So we'll grab rustup-init.exe right here, or if you are using the Windows subsystem for Linux, you can actually do curl proto and then use this. It's up to you on whichever one that you want to do. If you're running Linux, just grab this curl here and drop it into your terminal and it'll automatically install everything. In my case, I'm going to click on rustup.exe. I'm going to let that go. I'm going to keep it because I have security controls on this, so it's not going to let me download things. And we'll double click on Rust up. Now it's going to run through and install Rust up. And this may take a while, so I will be right back. Now, once you see Rust is now installed or Rust is installed now, great. Then you should be good. If you hit enter key to continue like so, it's going to close it. So let's go ahead and open up a terminal real quick. So we'll type terminal, or if you are a person that uses the command prompt, you can just type CMD and that should work. Now you should be able to type cargo and it should just show up with some information here. Cargo is basically the way you interact with Rust. So if you've never used Rust before, that's one of the big things is Cargo is that big package manager. So it's kind of like NPM or JavaScript. It's gigantic and it's very important to understand Cargo. So just keep it in mind and make sure you learn it really well. Now, first things first, we need to create a Rust project. And that's actually going to be relatively easy. What we'll do is I'm going to make dir, and I'm just going to call it Godot Rust tutorial. And that's just going to make a directory. So I'm going to be able to cd Godot Rust tutorial, and that will get me into that directory. And the reason why I'm doing that is because if I create a new crate in my main Fine.CGI directory, then it's just going to be existing in my main directory. So I wanted to make sure that that's not a thing. So now to make a crate, all we have to do is say cargo new. We have to come up with a name, so we'll just call it testCrate-lib. And what this does is it creates a new crate. So basically it creates a new library for your Godot project. Now, --lib actually creates it as a library, because if you don't do --lib, then it's going to create it as an executable, and that's not going to work with Godot. So we need to actually make it a lib. We'll hit enter. And it's going to create one. So it says created library testCrate package. So if we hit ls, you'll see we have testCrate here, cd testCrate like that. And we are now in that crate. Now, what I like to use is I like to use Visual Studio Code. If you have VS Code installed, that's perfect because that's exactly what I'm going to use. So I'm going to type code dot. And what that's going to do is it's going to open up VS Code. So I'll snap this guy in and I will trust the author. So you can see here, this is our Rust project. Now, you should install some things to work with Rust. Rust is not something that's super simple to use, and without having some kind of IntelliSense, you're going to be up a creek really quick. So we're going to go to extensions and we're going to type Rust, and it will come up with an extension here called Rust. It's up to you if you want to use this one or if you just want to pull the Rust Analyzer. Totally up to you on which one you prefer. Rust itself comes with Rust Analyzer, so it comes with this, and it comes with crates, and it comes with Rust syntax. So it's up to you on which one you want to do. I'm going to do Rust right here because it comes with a lot of the common stuff that I like to use. So we'll click install and we'll just let that pull it in. All right, once we have that, we can close this, go to our Explorer, and let's open up our Cargo.toml file. And what we're going to do is we're going to add some stuff. So first things first, this has a dependency. It has a Godot dependency. So we need to say Godot is equal to bracket get equals quote https ://get-hub.com/Godot-rust/gdext quote comma branch is equal to quote master. Now I'll have this in the description so you guys can just pull this down if you don't want to type it. And then we need to tell it to be a lib, and we need to say crate-type is equal to quote cdylib unquote. That will basically say, hey, I have a dependency. It's going to be called Godot. It's going to be this branch out on the Godot Rust GitHub, so we can pull that down. And this is going to tell it to build it as a dynamic library. And what that means is it means it's going to build it like a C++ project instead of a Rust project. So that allows that interoperability between C++ and Godot and Rust. So that's extremely important to have. So we'll hit Control S, and then we'll take a look at our lib.rs. So the lib.rs is your library.rs. So most of this is pretty much useless. We don't actually need any of this. All this is it's just an open library. But since we're not going to be using any of this, it doesn't really matter. So we'll get rid of that. And we're going to set up some basic stuff. So first things first, use Godot : prelude : star semicolon. And then we're going to create a struct. So we're going to say struct and our extension. And this is where we get to name our extension inside of Godot. So you can call it whatever you would like. In my case, since this is a test extension, I'm going to call it test extension. And then we need to kind of register that. So we'll say pound bracket bracket GD extension unsafe impel, and then we will call it extension library for test extension bracket bracket. And basically what happens is we're building a struct that basically just says, hey, this is a tag, right, that exists inside of Godot, more or less. And then we have the unsafe implementation extension library for test extension. So this is basically saying this is an extension library, which is extremely important. Now, to actually interact with the Godot system, we need to actually create a class. So we can come in here and just say use Godot : engine : node2d. And that's basically just going to pull in Godot's node2d code, and it'll allow us to actually build a node2d node inside of Godot. And now we can basically just derive our class from the Godot class and then set up our class. So we can say pound bracket bracket derive Godot class pound class base is equal to, and we have to choose our base, which is going to be a node2d because that's what we picked up here. So because we picked that up here, we need to kind of match those up. And then we have to create our struct. So struct test bracket bracket, and then we can set up any of our special parameters that we want. So for instance, if we were making a character controller, we could have like their speed or their jump height, things like that. But in this case, since we're basically just doing a hello world, we'll just keep it empty. And if we want to override any special base parameters, we could just go pound bracket bracket base. And then from there, we could actually pull back those base parameters. So what base basically allows you to do is it allows you to declare a field that allows you to access the base instance. So a lot of times you'll need to use this if you need some way to access your previous instance. So you could say node2d base node2d. And that basically allows you to access that if you need to. And now we can basically implement it. So we can say use Godot, engine, node 2D virtual. And basically that just is using the node 2D virtual, which actually allows us to pull back a lot of their virtual functions for that specific class. So it's really important that we have that. Then we could say hashtag Godot underscore API, IMPL, node 2D virtual for, and we have to use our struct name. So test, bracket. And basically that's creating our class. We're saying that we are implementing this as this. So this struct here is getting the node 2D virtual stuff. And the Godot API is basically registering test as a part of the Godot API. And now from here, we can basically create our functions. So fn init, and we'll take in our node 2D base node 2D. So we'll basically say node 2D base node 2D. And we will return, so pointer self, like that. And then from here, we can basically just do whatever it is that we need to do for an init function. So we can basically just say Godot underscore print hello, like that. And what that's going to do is it's going to print to our console hello when we get to that point. Now, we also can set up anything else that we need. So for instance, while we're in our function here, we can also say self, bracket, node 2D, like that. And that'll basically just return our base node 2D as our self. So that way we have access to all of those parameters and all those things from our base node. Now, I am not a Rust developer, so I'm sure I'm explaining this horribly. So I'm sure, please correct me in the comments because I don't know much about Rust. But the init here is basically equivalent to the Godot's init. So it is, when it gets created, this is what it runs, more or less. Now you might be asking, okay, but how do I actually do something over time? Well, that's where fn underscore process and mute self, comma, delta colon F64, like that. And that'll basically give us a process with our delta as if it would be in GD script. And basically we can just come in here and say Godot underscore print, and we can just say hello from process, and I'm going to bring in my delta, like that. And it's mad at me, so let's take a look at it. There's associated function with similar name of process. I actually think I need to get rid of the underscore. Let's see if that fixes it. There we go. And now it's going to get mad at us. No rules expected for token plus. So for right now, what I'm going to do is I'll remove this and I'll just say hello from process because I don't want to spend too much time debugging it. So we'll hit Control S, and then we can go into our terminal here. So we can go up to run, view, terminal, and it'll bring up our terminal here. And then we have to build it. So cargo build, enter. And you'll see, hopefully, everything will compile correctly. So it's going to download everything from the Godot core and do all the things. And then hopefully it will build correctly. So we will see. Now, it looks like it did build it as an unoptimized debug target. So perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. It does give us some helpers here and warnings, but that should be fine. So what we'll do is I will right click, reveal in File Explorer, and that's going to take me right there. I'm going to go to my test crate, and underneath target debug, it should show everything that I need. Now in Windows, you will see a .dll. If you are in Linux, you will see a SO file, and if you are in Windows or Macintosh, you should see dylib. So we'll grab the testCrate.dll, we'll copy it, and what I'm going to do is create a new Godot project. So we'll come in here, new project, and we'll come in here and say Rust tutorial, create a folder, and create. Now we're going to right click, create a new folder. We're going to call it lib, enter. We're going to right click, open in file manager, and we're going to paste that testCrate.dll in there. Now, if we click back to Godot, you'll notice that nothing happens. So what's going on? Why isn't it working? Well, for us to actually have this stuff work, we need to have what's called a GD extension file. And a GD extension file allows Godot to know that this is a library that we want to load. So we're going to right click, new text file. We'll hit Control A, get rid of it, and call it testCrate.dll extension, like that. And we'll hit yes. And it's going to make it as an extension file. Now I'm going to open up my VS Code here. I'm going to open up my lib folder and drag this up into my VS Code so that way I can edit it. Now, GD extension files are designed to teach Godot how to read your extension. So what we'll do is we'll put bracket, bracket, configuration, enter, entry underscore symbol is equal to gdext underscore rust underscore init, and then compatibility minimum. And we'll make that 4.1 because this is for Godot 4.1. If you are running Godot 4.0, this would be Godot 4.0, right? You'd put 4.0. If this was 3.5, you'd do 3.5. Though that being said, if you are in 3.5, just be aware that you need to use the Godot native, not the GD extension. There's two totally different worlds here. So you'll want to make sure that if you are using 3.5, that instead of doing Godot Rust GD extension, you do Godot Rust GD native, and it should, in theory, work. We'll go back to our GD extension, and what we'll do is we'll come in here, bracket, bracket, libraries, and here's where we'll define what our libraries are. Now, in our case, we only have Windows, so I'll say windows.debug.x86_64 is equal to quote res : and now we have to tell it where it's at. So lib / and I believe we have it under just testCrate.dll. So testCrate.dll. We'll copy and paste that, and we will say Windows release x86-64. Now, you don't have to do the Windows release if you don't want to, but in my case, I am, just because it's good if I need to do a release. I'm not getting debug. I'm not getting compiling errors and things like that, but you should do a release version of your crate and change this in the future. So now we'll hit Control S and we'll go back to Godot. Now, if everything's been done correctly, hopefully you won't have any errors in your output. In my case, I don't, and I have my GD extension here, so you can see that it exists. And we'll see if this works, hopefully by creating a 2D scene, right-clicking our node 2D, add in child node, and we go to node 2D, we should hopefully see our test node right here. So you can see that under node 2D, we have our test node. So we double-click that guy. You can see it says hello right here because it's being initialized. So if we hit clear and hit play, and we save this, there you go. So if we'll hit stop, you will see hello from process and hello. So now your question might be, okay, I can now access it. So what else can I do with it? Well, it's like any other language, really. So you can do pretty much anything that you want. So for instance, if we're in our process, let's come in here and pull out our print here. If we were to pull back, let's say when the user hits an input, we could actually set up a basic controller. So we could say, let input equal input : singleton, let mute velocity equals vector2 : new bracket 0.0 comma 0.0, like that. And then we could just say if input : is action pressed, and we can pass in our input like that, and we have to pass in an action. Now this is where things get a little strange. So string name : from string quote, I'm going to say a dot unwrap. Then what we can do is say velocity dot x minus equals 1.0. like that. And then I could basically duplicate this guy 4 times, and I can say ADWS, and then I can come in here and just say plus Y minus Y plus, like that. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to move our character left, right, up, and down. And then we can say let mute pause is equal to self.node2d dot get position, like that. Self.node2d dot set position pause plus velocity, like that. And you'll notice that I have a self.node2d. So what does that mean? Well, self.node2d, if you remember up here, we set ourself as node2d, which was a type node2d. So that's how we get back our own objects stuff. So that's how we actually pull all that back. So we can hit Control S. Now, you might be asking, okay, hold on a minute. So you're telling me that every single class that I have has to be done inside of this? And the answer is no, you don't. But it is a little bit complicated to do it inside of another file. So if I come into my src, I hit plus, and I type something like player, or I guess in this case, since I'm doing test, we'll say test.rs. We'll come in here and we'll just grab all of this. So we'll copy it, go into test.rs, we'll paste. We'll come up to rs, we'll grab these two guys, and we'll come up here and paste it. Then we could probably pull this guy up to the top as well, like that, and that should work. Now, if we come in here and we compile, so if we hit view, terminal, up, enter, you'll see we get an error, so we have some warnings. It's mad at us because we have an extra equals, so it's going to be plus equals, not plus minus equals. We'll hit up, build. It's mad at us because we have, it's because this hasn't been removed yet. So we'll come in here. We have duplicates here. So we'll come in and pull all of this out like that. We'll hit Control S. We'll hit up, build, and you'll notice that it's built. So now we can come in here, go into our library, come up here, go into our debug. If you'll see, our modified date has changed. So I'm going to make sure I refresh that. Copy, paste, replace, and you'll notice that we have an issue. Folder is in use, cannot be completed because a folder or file is open in another program. Now, this is a known issue in the Godot game engine. So unfortunately, what we have to do is we have to close Godot, try again, and then we have to reopen Godot and reload our project. Now, unfortunately, that is something that Godot is aware of. If you are on Windows, that is going to be a problem. So just keep that in mind and you'll be okay. Now, if we right click, add in a child node, and we type in test, you'll notice that our node is gone. So what happened? Well, when we compiled our library, this whole system does not know that test.rs exists. So we actually have to add it. So we have to come in here and say mod test. And now if we compile it and we close Godot, like so, and we come in here, we copy this and we paste it, and then we reopen it, you will notice that now if we right click and type test, you will see that test exists. So that's something to keep in mind. You need to keep a reference of that class somewhere inside of your lib.rs using mod. Now, granted, there are some people who probably know Rust way better than I do, so they'll be able to explain things way better and probably be better at handling all of this than me, but that's just something to keep in mind. Now, for this code to work, we need a input mapping. So we'll come up here, we'll go to project settings, we'll go into the input map, we will add in a new action, W, A, S, and D, and we'll say W is W, A is A, S is S, and D is D. We'll hit close. I'm going to drag in my icon for my sprite. So I'll put them right on where my node 2D is, and I'll put them right underneath my test.tscn. And now if I hit play, in theory, I should be able to hit W, A, S, and D, and my character should be able to move. Awesome. So now we're pretty much there, right? It all just works. So what else can we do? Well, we can actually build our own functionality into Godot. And what I mean by that is this is us just building a actual character controller. But what if we wanted to be able to access information and call functions from GD script? Well, that's where the pound function comes in. So if I hit pound bracket bracket func fn hello world like that, and I pass in and mute self comma words colon string name like that, in theory this will work. We'll see, because who knows. So we'll come in here and say Godot print words like that, and then let's say we wanted to have it emit a signal. So when you call this, I want you to emit a signal, right? So what can we do? Well, we can come in here and go fn hello world signal like that, and then we can go pound bracket bracket signal like that, and then we can come in here and fire that off by going self dot node2d dot emit signal, and we could pass in our signal. So quote hello world signal dot into like that, and then we can pass our variant. So I'm going to say and open close, because I'm not going to be passing anything. Let's see what happens if we try to compile it. It might compile. It doesn't look like it's going to, so let's see. I think I'm going to need to do this. Let's grab this guy, pull it out, and say IMPL. I think that's going to take me, let me see. Yeah, that'll take me out. Implement test. Like that. Bracket, bracket, paste. Let's see if it takes that instead. And we'll annotate this with the pound bracket, bracket, Godot underscore API. Let's see if that will take it. Now we should be able to build, and it's still mad at us. So what do we have? It's mostly small stuff, but we do have some small stuff. So there's no rule. Let me try changing this to a type string instead and see if that allows this. Let's see. The following other types can be used. Godot string. So maybe we'll have to do Godot string instead. That makes that happy, but this is trying to be a FM literal. See if does toString work in Rust? So let's see what happens if I do quote, quote, bracket, bracket, comma, words to string. And let's see if that builds. Hey, it built. All right. So I guess that's how you have to do it. So once we have that, let's go into here. Let's go into our debug because it built finally. We'll come into Godot, Rust, we'll close it. We will copy this guy, paste it, and replace. And then we're going to right click Godot engine. And we'll snap this guy in here. And now, in theory, we should be able to do, if we look at our test and we look at our node, we have a hello world signal. So now we can just go attach a script, node2d.gd, and we can say, let's attach hello world signal to here and type print, bracket, bracket, got signal call like that. And on ready, we can go $test dot, and you should see the function hello world. And we have to pass in a string. So we can say, this is our test string like that. And if we hit play, hello, this is our test string, got a signal call. And our stuff, once again, still works. Awesome. So basically, that's everything that you need to know. But I know the question that might be on your mind. How would I go about debugging this? And now that is a really painful question, but I will show you how to do it. So if we go to our VS Code here, we can come in here and go into our run and debug, and we can create a launch.json. Now it's going to have different extensions here, and you'll notice that they're all basically useless. So what we'll do is we'll go to install extension for Rust, and we'll come in here and type code LLDB, and that is a native debugger. So we'll click on that bad boy and we will install it. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to debug C++ and Rust code right inside of our editor. So now we can come over here to run and debug, click create a JSON file, and we'll pick LDB or LLDB. Now you'll see that it has all this stuff in here: type, request, name, right? Debug. We can actually name this whatever we want. We'll come up by our request. We'll hit quote pre-launch task, and we're actually going to pass in a pre-launch task. So we'll say Rust : cargo build, and that's going to set it up so that way it builds our project when we click on debug beforehand. And now we need to give it some arguments. So we'll come into the arguments folder. We'll hit -E, -W, and we need to wrap that in a quote real quick. Got to come down here, quote Windows, and we'll tell it what to run. So we'll hit quote C : / and we'll pass in where our Godot is located. Now in our case, if I look at this guy here, I go to my downloads, and then I go to, I believe I have it, Godot 4.1 stable, copy as path, and then we'll come in here and just paste. And then what I'm going to do is just double slash all of our slashes like this. And hopefully this will just work. So we'll see though, because it's definitely a little bit on the finicky side for me. So hopefully this will be relatively painless. Now, if you want to, you can come in and actually set up your Windows, Mac, and Linux ones as well, if you prefer to do it on Mac, Linux, or Windows. And I think this has a : expected, which means I probably have something wrong here. If I put a comma, I figured it out. So you need to come in here and type program, quote, : space, and then quote like that. And then we can get rid of this little program here. So we'll just get rid of that. And in theory, this should allow us to do debugging. Now, we'll see. So we'll come in here, and I'm going to do a breakpoint on my process node right here. And I'm going to hit, actually, I'll do it on here. There we go. We'll hit play. Okay, so I figured it out. So basically what was going on was my program I have here was the wrong program. I was giving Godot 4.1 instead of 4.1.1. So that was my fault. So when I'm doing my building, I'm actually building for 4.1.1. So that's the reason why this went kind of kaput on me. Now, in terms of arguments, I actually got it wrong. We're supposed to do -- path, and that will be the path to our Rust project. So in this case, it's C users, find.cgi, documents, Rust tutorial. And finally, the other thing that we have to do is we have to go into our Godot here, go to our project settings, go into run, and set our main scene as the scene we are going to debug. And then I will save Godot. I will close it. So we'll click debug, and hopefully, there we go. It's loaded our project. If we click on test.rs, you can see I have a breakpoint here on my velocity. I'm going to hit A, and it will snap to that thing. You can see I actually have my static, my globals, my references. It is a little bit on the slow side. Something I've noticed is the debugging is very finicky. I don't know if there's something that I'm doing necessarily wrong here, but it does look like it is a little bit on the slow side. Like you can see it's thinking as it's going. And if I hit play, it doesn't really do much else. So I don't know if there's something that I might be doing wrong here, but that's basically how you set this up. And you can see that it actually works. You can see I pulled back all that information, my node information, my delta, my input, and I can hit play and it will continue to work. So it does operate. It's just a touch bit finicky. If I hit A again, you can see I got my breakpoint and I can step through my code like that. And that's basically everything that you pretty much need to know about how to use Rust inside of Godot. So if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. Hey, if you dislike this video, go ahead and hit dislike button because I am here to make content for you guys. This video, as with every video on this channel, was a viewer suggested video, so please, if you have any suggestions, throw them in the comments below. Or you can jump on my GitHub and throw in a suggestion. I actually have an entire GitHub dedicated to all of my suggestions, and I take them very seriously. So if you have any, please let me know. And hey, if you guys have any questions or comments, jump on my Discord, links in the description, and I'll be more than happy to help you out, providing that I, of course, have the time. But that is all I have for you guys today. So thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you all next time. Thanks.